Hello, everyone. I think we're live. Is everyone hearing me? Welcome. This is the first time we do this, such a live conference. It's exciting. It's also the first time that we do the Nilearn days. So we are super excited. And I can see many people are online. So you're all getting familiar with the interface, I suspect. It's new to us too, by the way. The goal of using this interface is to be able to share as much as possible with everyone. We can invite several people online. As you can see, Bertrand has just joined us. And you are more than welcome to ask any question or make any comment that you want on the chat. The goal is really to have interaction as much as we can online. Bertrand, anything you want to add?
No, thanks.
Very good. So the program of this day is around technical aspects of development. In a very general, with a very general definition of technical aspects. And our goal really is to try to foster new contributors to Nilearn and even new maintainers. Our goal is really to build a wider, more technically skilled community to improve both Nilearn, but the wider ecosystem, including the Python neuroscience ecosystem, and in general, the Python science ecosystem. So our goal is that those materials will be useful both to bring everybody up to scale to make Nilearn bigger and better, but also for other projects. So we have quite an exciting set of presentations, in my opinion, with different topics that are all related to contributing to Nilearn. We'll start with Julia Gutenberg, one of our core contributors, who will talk about adding new features to Nilearn with her point of view. And I personally will be extremely interested in this presentation because it's very interesting for us to feel what it is to be a contributor. I can't really say new contributor because she was a new contributor, but quite a while ago. Then Bertrand will talk about documentation-driven development. I will give a broader picture presentation on how I think about open source development and about making choices for open source. Then we'll have Elizabeth. We'll take a break, or we'll have a bunch of breaks, right? Then we'll have Elizabeth, who will talk about GitHub for project maintainers, and that's not only low-level Git. It's also how to foster discussion, how to foster collaboration with Git. Hi, Elizabeth. And then Chris will talk about testing numerical code in Python. Chris is maintainer of Nibable and, of course, a contributor to Nilearn MyStats. So he's really maneuvering very important parts of the ecosystem. Jérôme then will go in details in our set of continuous integration tests. So basically everything that is useful to continuously run the quality assurance tests of Nilearn. And then finally, Alejandro will give us a broad picture tour of the wider Python ecosystem for neuroimaging, which we really would like to foster and see grow. So maybe before we go live with Julia, I can give a few words on the context of these dev days. The context is that we have merged recently Nystat into Nilearn. And this was an interesting and difficult decision. We had been thinking about this for quite a while, and it's a question of project scope. So should we or should we not merge? It's just that we had lots of overlap in the contributors to the two projects, and also we had lots of cross-dependencies. Basically, it was clear that each project needed one to depend on the other for multiple reasons. And this is a really exciting moment because it's with the merge of Nystats, basically the scope of Nilearn is becoming significantly wider. It's about addressing the statistical needs of the brain imaging community with a focus on volumetric brain images or as inputs. We're not excluding surface in any way, and there's been a lot of work on surface. Rather, we're not focusing on electrophysiology, so we're focusing on MR PET. But with this, broader focus of wider statistics that get merged into a single package, there is the vision that we should be able to bring a single entry point to solve many of the user's problems once they've finished doing the pre-processing. So this is a very important aspect of the scientific pipeline. And so with this, we can clearly see a broadening of the scope of Nilearn. We can see somewhat of a second life of Nilearn, which is a bigger, broader life. And with this, we can also hopefully see a broader community of contributors and hence of maintainers. So the goal is really to, in a few years, have a package that is able to solve many problems of the data processing ecosystem in neuroimaging. And to make very clear what the scope is going to be, our goal is not to do the pre-processing steps for multiple reasons. One of them is that they require different technology than what we have. And another one is that we focus on things that should be rather short to run for things that are closer to interactive data analysis. And if you look at the life cycle of brain imaging data analysis, well, if a study with including the brain imaging data analysis, what you find is that there's a lot of iteration on the definition of the statistical analysis because it's very hard to specify it up front. And so this is where we want to empower users as much as possible, with a focus on short snippets of code in a Jupyter notebook or a VS Code instance or any scripting instance. So we still have a few minutes before the official time for Julia to start. So this would be time for an informal chat. Are there any questions on Nilearn, on the days, on anything? Will the videos be available after the event? The goal is to have the videos available online after the event. I've never posted long videos on YouTube. I'm sure it's feasible. Well, first, they should be available on Crowdcast. Crowdcast is recording all this and reserving this, but we also want to post them from on YouTube. We'll just have to figure out how to do this. By the way, Nilearn wants to be a community effort. So if people are expert of posting videos on YouTube or anything that's helpful, we'd be very happy to have you join. Elizabeth is asking, what about the sprint? Indeed, yes, thank you, Elizabeth. We also have a live YouTube stream right now, which may be more handy for people who want to follow and, for instance, are using the YouTube application on a mobile phone or a tablet. The downside, of course, is it's not possible to interact as much as on Crowdcast, but the upside is it may be easier to follow. So the sprint, yes. In the next few days, we're going to be sprinting. A sprint is when multiple developers come together to focus on a project and to try to improve it. Sprints are where more advanced developers, such as the people who will be speaking, join with people who don't know the package as well. So it's a unique opportunity to advance features that are a priority, less maybe of the core developers and more of the community. Sprints are extremely important because they allow us to onboard new developers and help new developers learn how to work with us. And I should say that our dream is to create new regular developers and maybe new core contributors. We've had a team of core contributor that is increasing. It's increasing both in size, but also in diversity. And by diversity, I don't only mean race and sex. I also mean different origins. Historically, Nilearn was very much born in France in the parietal team, but our goal is really to have a diversity of points of view in Nilearn. And the sprint is a really good moment to join and try to move forward some aspects of Nilearn that are important to other people than the parietal team. Everybody has their own biases. Sylvain is asking whether NiPy is definitely and officially dead. I can't speak for NiPy. I think what really happened is that NiPy gave birth to a community rather than a specific tool. NiBabel was born out of NiPy and is doing extremely well. DiPy was born out of NiPy, so DiPy is diffusion tools, and they're quite an amazing tool if you do diffusion. And in a sense, Nilearn, these days, we're seeing that Nilearn is being born out of NiPy. There were some of the functionality that we provide these days, such as ICA, that were in NiPy. The visualization was in NiPy, and the statistical models that we've merged by merging NiStats came from NiPy. Actually, the history of this statistical model is quite interesting, is that it's code that originally was written by Keith Worthley in MATLAB, fMRI stats, and then Keith's student, Jonathan Taylor, partly rewrote it, rewrote the same statistical models in Python. I think it was called BrainPy. Then it got integrated in NiPy. Then other statistical code was merged in NiPy, and the whole thing was reworked. Then the corresponding statistical code was extracted from NiPy and NiStats. And the reason was that NiPy was a package that was difficult to install, and so we wanted a lighter package with NiStats. And that was reworked and reworked. And because the growth of Nilearn, which was focusing on multivariate statistics, and NiStats were pretty much linked because they were reusing each other a lot, or wanted to reuse each other a lot, these code are now getting merged, and what we're seeing is a consolidation of the statistical modeling code in Python. And that's really our goal, is to consolidate this more and more. Is there a plan to have a random field theory-based GLM inference in Nilearn? I will let Bertrand reply to this because he is the master of GLMs. Bits format into Nilearn. Yes and no. In a sense, I think it depends where the bits format goes. Nilearn doesn't do any pre-processing. So in a sense, we don't really input raw bits. But as the bits derivatives settle down, we should be able to input bits derivative. I haven't followed very well what the status of bits derivative these days. Last time I looked, it was a bit of a Babel tower because there were many derivatives depending on the software that was used for preprocessing. So as software that are used for preprocessing basically settle down to have more uniform outputs, we'll see that we'll improve this data loading, and ideally this should happen via bits. I think what I should do now in terms, more questions, Nilearn into the NiPipe workflow. Yeah, I mean, there are some parts of Nilearn that are already integrated in NiPipe. What the Nilearn team focuses on is a usage with Python scripts and notebooks. And the reason is that statistical analysis is often, not always, but often a place where you want to have a lot of short cycles of running analysis and looking at its outputs. So we really like working with scripts or notebooks. Are there questions? So, oh yes, there are questions. I'm sorry, I didn't see the questions. Oh, well, that's okay. Each time you put a question mark, this thing, well, or people transform this in questions. So there was a question, and you can vote those questions up. There was a question that asked, if preprocessing is out of the scope of Nilearn, what would we recommend? Well, probably fMRI prep. It's really the package that has been emerging as an absolute standard for preprocessing. Yes, and Joe basically replied the same thing. That's really nice to see this. If you mentioned that Nilearn is optimized for volumetric input. Is there interest in improving the oh, that question jumped because probably somebody voted it. Interest in improving the usability of Surface? The answer is yes, and Yulia has already mentioned. So Surface is a good example of why we need a community. I personally don't run surface analysis, so I don't have a good feeling of what's a good API and a good workflow for Surface. So I need other people to basically, push this forward. And this was historically done by Yulia, who basically forced us to do Surface in a very elegant way. I think I should bring Yulia on stage and leave her the stage. And we can always, answer the questions via the question interface. So I need to find her because there is 100 people online, which is crazy. Crazy good.